Hello, and welcome to my video. As I'm sure you are aware, we are in the midst of the 2024 presidential election. And perhaps I will state the obvious. These aren't normal times, and this is certainly not a normal election. And I'm sure if circumstances had been more normal, we might be seeing different candidates than the ones we have currently. One of such candidates is Vice President Harris, while the other, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, is none other than Donald Trump, who I'm sure many of us know by this point in time. I mean, really, how can we forget the things that Trump has done over the last 5 to 10 years? You know, COVID, January 6th, things like those insane tax breaks he gave to the rich people in the country. I mean, really, the list goes on. Then, of course, we see the more recent stuff, like Project 2025, Roe v. Wade. Again, I could go on and on. But then there's something that, to be honest, I don't really hear very many people talking about, which makes you wonder how many people truly know about this one thing that I and at least a couple other people do. Which will be the basis behind this debut video. It will be to warn anyone who has not yet voted in this election. So to anyone who is either going to vote or is considering on voting, I hope you will at least hear me out before you do cast your vote in this election. So I am aware that Donald Trump already has this long laundry list of things against him, one of which being those felony charges against him. But again, there is at least one thing that I worry not many people know about in relation to him. And that's Donald Trump's status as a secret agent working for, at the bare minimum, Russia. If not China and North Korea as well. I mean, really, how else would you explain his behavior over the last 5 to 10 years? It's not just because he's narcissistic or all these other things that people have said about him. I mean, really, why else would Trump, in addition to others, go to the lengths that they did to strip people of their rights? I don't think it's just because, conservatism, as they would like to claim. I mean, why would a conservative go against the people who voted to have a certain thing put in place and yet they act like it's not true? Oh yeah, and what about Trump's claim that he'll be a dictator on day one if he's reelected? You can't tell me that's not a potential clue that he's a secret agent. Oh, and wait, what about that secret Chinese bank account he was reported to have back in 2020? I can't help but feel like maybe he obtained it in exchange for doing special favors. Special favors possibly meaning he's doing something to help damage our country, because our enemies, they clearly know that if we caught them attacking on a more visible scale, we would probably retaliate. Then again, that's just my guess. Oh, and here's a possible smoking gun for you. Remember the 2016 election? You know, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? Notice the way that Trump only won the Electoral College but Hillary Clinton won the popular vote? It has been brought to my attention, particularly by former FBI guy Robert Muller, that Russia helped Trump to steal that election. I mean, really, why else would it seem as lopsided as it did? Perhaps the email scandal will ring a bell? Supposedly that was set up by Russia. I believe that means that had Russia not interfered back in 2016, Hillary would have been the rightful winner of that election. Now, how do you know this isn't some so-called woke conspiracy theory, as some people like to call it? Well, feel free to take the time to not only reflect on the last 5 to 10 years in relation to the things Trump has done and also the things he is threatening to do, but feel free to also do some in-depth research if you feel like you have the time for it. Now, with that in mind, let's take a minute to consider what could potentially happen if Trump does take office, and now we know he is likely to be a secret agent working for, again, at the minimum, Russia. Imagine what's been going on in the Ukraine. Imagine what's been going on, all over the place lately. Then imagine what would happen if that were suddenly applied to the United States because of Trump working for our enemies. If he is in fact doing so, and to be honest, I believe he is. The world is already chaotic enough without, Donald Trump being more actively involved. I mean, we're practically on the brink of World War III as it is. Now, if for some reason any of you potential voters feel like maybe you still have your hands tied decision-wise, and maybe you're like, well, what about Biden or Harris? They made some less than great decisions over the last 4 years. Well, let's be honest. I live by this saying which goes, there's no such thing as a perfect president, or vice president for that matter. Nor is there such a thing as a perfect presidential or vice presidential candidate either. We may have to look at it as, the lesser of two evils at this point, or, voting for someone not to support them necessarily, but rather to defeat the other person. If that's what it must come to, of course. I mean, really, Washington made mistakes. Lincoln made mistakes. LBJ, Reagan, dare I say it. This is really how you know there's no such thing as a perfect president. There really isn't. So when you compare Trump to either Biden or Harris, let's be honest. At least Biden or Harris, in my opinion, are still technically the lesser of two evils. I feel that voting for either of those two, at least we would give America a fighting chance. Now, yes, it is fairly likely that they'll have stuff to work on if they do get reelected. I'm sure if we speak up loud enough, we could remind them of what we want them to work on. Border security being one of them. And besides, why should we give Trump a second term? He really doesn't deserve it anyways. Why should America be ruled by a king, a dictator, somebody who is willing to terminate the Constitution, ignore our Declaration of Independence pretty much, or other things such as that? A criminal with 34 or so felonies? I mean, really, we should be electing a prosecutor to prosecute the criminal, not the other way around. So with that being said, I hope somehow maybe I've changed your mind. I'm hoping somehow you will find it in your heart to vote for Kamala Harris on election day. Because let's be honest, a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote to give America a fighting chance. Whereas a vote for Donald Trump, I mean, let's be honest at this point, it may as well be a vote to give America the death penalty at this point, or the equivalent thereof. Oh, but don't worry about any issues currently affecting you or the rest of the country. If Kamala is elected on election day, I get the feeling that, they will continue to be addressed over time.